Welcome to another edition of House to Home Outdoors. I'm Clyde Hawsey, and you know, as a landscape architect, you could say, well, I have a lot of knowledge. Well, I do, but I also have some friends around me, and with Treescapes. And Greg, thank you for coming and joining and helping me out, because you're going to kind of save me a little bit.
My pleasure.
I have my pleasure of some sharp cutting tools,
Right.
but I've got some subjects out here, some fruit trees, and I've got some other shade trees. I haven't taken good care of them.
It's okay.
So we're going to take this information and we're going to offer it to you at home that you can apply to your own shade tree or your own fruit tree and identify what's taking place.
Absolutely.
So can we just glance down the way here and look at this little fruit tree I've got here, Greg?
Sure.
And I want to say thank you again for coming, because
You bet.
that little shade tree or that little apple tree, he does produce good fruit, but he's got a lot of suckers on it. And some are good and some of them are bad, right?
Sure.
But overall, what do we need to do on a tree that you're going to have in your backyard that you want to have fruit on and a little bit of privacy, let's say?
Sure.
What do we need to do for that?
Well, first we have to make the decision as to whether are we going to use this tree as strictly an ornamental, as just something that flowers in our yard and is decorative.
Okay.
Or we need to make a decision, are we going to harvest this fruit? Is this something that we're going to be making cherry pies with, apple pies, things of that
All the
nature?
above, right.
Because fruit trees go both directions. Some of our homeowners actually just appreciate the blossoms, right?
That's
Isn't
true.
it beautiful when it blossoms in the spring?
It's gorgeous.
I love them. So we obviously wouldn't want to trim a fruit tree as this one if we're using it as an ornamental. Because most of us, when we think of our fruit trees, they think of the orchard where it's turned into a cropped,
Right.
almost a hat rack,
Right.
right? But in our yard, if we're not harvesting the fruit that way, let's not prune it that way. If we do want to have an orchard tree and we want fruit production and we want to harvest it, that's a whole nother method of pruning.
A whole different way of pruning. What he's saying is that we don't want to butcher it.
Correct.
Some of the fruit-bearing trees, they get butchered early,
Yes.
and
And
right
at the
now,
wrong time of year.
wrong time of the year. So
I can't
understand.
stress enough.
Yeah.
Everything is about timing with our trees, and be patient. These are living organisms.
Well, one of the things, folks, I wanted to bring Greg along for today is that the trees have no leaves on them.
Right.
And evaluating your trees and your shrubs in your yard this time of the year is really good. Can we take a look at a couple other trees I have down here, the deciduous trees? But before we do that, I almost forgot. We're looking and standing underneath a Doug fir.
Beautiful Doug fir.
You know, and we all are seeing a lot of these around, and we've had some ice storms, some wind storms.
Right.
How do we maintain these trees?
It's very important with our conifers, needle-bearing trees, whether it be a fir tree, a spruce, even a ponderosa pine, one of the most prevalent trees in our landscape, right?
Yes.
So let's not fear our trees. Yes, they get tall. Yes, they get wide. But proper care and maintenance and identifying potential hazards or issues are always the way to go.
Yes. There's a lot of little dead stuff in the tree, and there's even some larger branches that were caused years ago. We need to get in and get those cleaned out. Am I right on that, Greg?
Correct. What we want to go after most importantly is what we call the litter. So we're going to go after dead wood that the tree is already naturally shedding. Let's give the tree a hand and mechanically get that out.
Okay. We're going to come back and visit the root system here later on another segment, but let's go down and look at this ash tree down
Absolutely
here.
gorgeous tree, by the way.
Well,
Needs a little help.
It needs help, just like I do. Okay, thank you. Let's go down here and take a look at this tree.
You bet.
Well, Greg, here we are. This poor tree, this is a green mountain ash. But Greg, I can already see this is a good time of the year to look at your shade trees because the buds are beginning to break. They're swelling, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. With the nice, beautiful weather we've had over the last couple of weeks.
Well, it's kind of chilly yet, but it's all right. It's all right. Spring is coming,
It's
folks.
around the corner.
It's around the corner. So talk to me now. This tree, it's been here for 30 years.
Sure.
It's a smaller growing shade tree. And I have to be honest with you, I've neglected it.
Sure.
I've had a branch break off here and a branch break off there, but I need to be responsible and take care of it. So what do I do? Where do we begin?
You're right on the spot. Great time of year. You can actually see what's live from dead in a great situation because you can actually visualize in the canopy the swelling of those buds.
Right.
So if you do look at this green ash, which is a great tree to have in your backyard, if you notice the top section of this canopy is different than the middle or the base of the canopy, right?
Yes,
we notice that the top is a little bit more airy. We're getting a little bit more sun, a little bit more air flow through the top of the canopy. What we want to make sure of is that the canopy is the same throughout the shell. We want equality, right?
And the trunk has to support that canopy.
Absolutely. So that's where the balancing is super crucial. And I always recommend, and this is a bit of a big tree, so for the homeowner to hop up in a ladder and then willy-nilly gas.
You mean you don't like my pruning tools?
Well, you can. I love your pruning tools.
Not for me anymore.
But when a tree gets this size and maybe even a little bit bigger, it's a good opportunity to maybe bring in an actual ISA certified arborist. Make sure the folks that you're talking to are educated, not just calling themselves something.
Let's look and see and find out what they really are, is what you're saying.
Absolutely do your homework. In this tree in particular, we really, again, want to go after your dead wood. Okay. We also want to focus on branches that are potentially rubbing against each other in the windstorm. Crisscrossing. When they do that, they also can impede growth. So we want to be very selective. The biggest challenge is many people, even in the pruning trade, over prune a green ash.
They butcher it.
They butcher it. When you over prune a tree, it creates massive sucker growth, massive unnatural growth.
And he's saying that you're going to stress out your tree. The other thing, the time of the year when you're pruning.
Super crucial.
Okay,
Super
help
crucial.
us out.
We've kind of, we're there. So our tree is actually changing right now before our eyes. You had mentioned at the opener here that our buds are swelling. That's a cue right there. Hold up a little bit. Because if you were to go in and prune this tree today, if we were here to work on it, tomorrow and the next day, we'll start seeing a little bit of weeping. We'll start seeing some of that water and sugar and food source exhaust out of the tree.
What he's saying, the tree will actually bleed and it'll actually run down the trunk of the tree, and that is not good, folks. So timing is everything. Plan ahead for the fall, plan ahead for the right time, but now is the right time to go out and view these trees.
That's right, and identify what your issues may be. Now you have multiple times throughout the year that you could address this tree. What we never want to do is address any of our plant specimens during the change. So going from winter to spring, now they're recouping all that energy that food source they stored through the winter.
Okay. Great tips. Again, like I say, as a landscape architect, I understand what he's talking about. Layman's terms, choose the right time, get somebody to look at these shade trees. And this can be either an ash, this could be a linden, it can be a maple tree. They're all about the same, but understand it's the same practice that you're going to be doing. I've got a blood-good maple around here that a lot of people have got, so let's go over and take a look at that and help us out there.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go over here. Well, Greg, here we are in front of a blood-good red maple that a lot of us have in our yard. And look at how the buds are swelling on this. I mean,
it's unbelievable.
But look at all the dead wood, right?
There's quite a bit, and that again is the tree's natural shed process. But it's litter in our tree. Right? So that's really what we'll go after. I mean, here you've got a piece in particular that has zero budding. You can see it's a completely different color than what I have here.
Right, because here again you can see, folks, that, and when you're up close examine it, it has a reddish color to the actual bark itself.
The stem, yeah.
And here we have a definite, it's brown.
Right.
So you could take my pruners and you could prune up some of this dead stuff out there, right?
Correct.
And I mean, that's something I can do, right?
Absolutely, in your own spare time. Make sure that when you're making your cuts, we're being appropriate at where the location that we're actually cutting the tree. And so I'll give you an example here if you'd like. Let me grab your pruners here. So, well, that was completely dead. Let's look at a live piece. Let's say this piece right here, we want to take off as a lower lateral. Let's make an initial cut out on the branch so we alleviate the weight load. Let's look for the collar of the branch right there to make our final cut nice and clean.
Nice and clean cut. So if you are out pruning, you want to be kind of the DIY of the weekend.
That's right.
You could do that on some of your trees. Greg, I have the last tree because I know time is speeding by.
Sure.
Let's go up and look at this weeping cherry up here because it's got some challenges and it's a beautiful tree.
Absolutely.
So let's go up here and take a look at it.
Be glad to.
Okay, Greg, this is my pride and joy of my yard. I ignored it for years. I had a lot of vertical lines going up on it, and I cleaned them out, and I see now I got some more.
Right.
But look at all the new growth. Look at the buds, how they're
Absolutely
swelling.
incredible.
I mean, this tree is really ready for spring, isn't it?
It's happy. It's ready to go.
So talk to us what has to happen here really with this tree, and I'll nourish it along and we'll do it in stages. What do we want to do? Do you need my saw?
Saw might be a little aggressive.
Okay.
But remember with our trees, we don't want to be overly aggressive. We don't want to get too excited when we prune. I'll tell you what we do at Treescapes when we're helping our clients understand pruning process. Don't be afraid to actually look at your tree. Let's say you're going to choose this branch to cut. Don't cut it yet. Pull it out of the way. see what the tree's going to look like before you eliminate that limb.
Okay. You can't glue these back on,
You
folks.
can't, no matter what. It's like, if you remove a tree, it's gone.
It's gone. So, but in this particular case, folks, weeping cherries don't just happen.
Right.
They're grafted. And stay here, Greg. I want to show everybody. This tree was grafted on way up here.
Right.
And that's how it has this weeping effect.
Right.
The vertical lines are the branches that are going straight up, and that's not normal or natural. You have to understand how they all grow. Greg, you know, we've given a lot of people a lot of good information here today. How do we get hold of you? What's your website, phone number, and so forth?
Absolutely.
Treescapes is so important to us.
Treescapes Inc. And keep in mind, we're very passionate about what we do. We do believe in proper arboriculture, and we're here to help the community. Feel free to look us up at treescapesinc.com, or I'll make it even easier, 509-922-TREE.
Well, folks, I can always count on you, Greg, to come and help me out.
Absolutely.
And Greg has opened up my eyes, and I hope we've opened up your eyes to what you're looking at and what's taking place in your yard. We're going to go visit the yard in other spots, and we're going to visit those the conifers.
Yes.
On the root problems and
Yes.
trees that are being stressed out. So for now, I'm Clyde Hossie, Greg with Treescapes. We'll see you next time on House to Home Outdoors.